Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to the 1993 Mazda FD RX-7 R1. I've driven multiple FD RX-7s on the channel before, but this might just be the cleanest, lowest mileage example. It's currently sitting at under 30,000 miles. The owner, Toby, bought this with 14,000 miles. He's only done a few mods to this car, including an RE-Amemiya 3-inch downpipe, a DO Engineering titanium catback exhaust, the Sakebomb Garage Brake Master cylinder brace. Shout out to Sakebomb Garage. We're all the way out here in Navasota, Texas, just outside of Houston, and we're driving a car that has parts from one of my favorite shops local to me in the Bay Area, California. We've got this MOMO 350mm steering wheel, which is the JDM Cobra wheel, as you can see here, Cobra MOMO. We've got some AutoMeter boost gauges, clutch interlock switch delete, and the Continental ExtremeContact Sport Plus tires. Now, being an R1 package, this is the more hardcore driver-focused package that was available for the FD RX-7. That means we get a front air dam, a rear wing, dual oil coolers, front brake air ducts, and R1 specific suspension tuning, as well as a front shock tower brace. Of course, we're powered by the legendary 1.3 liter 13B dual rotor rotary engine, making 255 horsepower and 217 pound-feet of torque. This car weighs a little over 2,800 pounds, double wishbone front and rear suspension, hydraulic power steering, 5-speed manual transmission. I'm so excited to drive this thing, but a few words on the interior first. Not a well-built car, I will say. The interior is prone to falling apart. This does not stand the test of time nearly as well as the contemporary Acura or Honda NSX. All the switchgear is functional, but everything has a plasticky, vague feel. I mean, look at this. It doesn't even have indents, or no longer does at least, for these different AC controls. Everything feels cheap and flimsy. The door handles are known to fall apart with repeated usage. But that's not the point of this car. This car is all about the driving dynamics. And of course, the exterior styling, which over 30 years later still is one of the best looking cars on the road. The double bubble design to the roof, and the fact that from the driver's seat you can see the fender arches out front. It's just perfect. But enough of that, let's take this FD RX-7 for a drive. We'll get a little bit of air going here. 5-speed manual with gears that are spaced quite far apart. Straight stretch of road here in Texas. You know what's coming. Oh yes. It still feels quick today. Wow, that immediate turn in from this front end. It just feels like there's so little weight up front. And of course, that's one of the benefits of the rotary engine. It's very compact, very lightweight. It sits very low, so the center of gravity is very low. And it just provides a very unique driving experience. Even the sound, listen to that. It's like a swarm of angry bees. And this hydraulic steering rack, full of feedback, easy to heel toe, but you do have to give that throttle pedal a heavy blip because the gearing is spaced out quite far apart. Let's do another straight line pull here. From first gear, roll into it. There's a bit of vibration from the steering wheel when I brake, so I think these rotors might be warped. But otherwise, the steering feels excellent. Plenty of feedback about the road surface. It loads up nicely in the corners. Let's do a pull from second gear from 4,000 RPM. Sequential turbos. So one covers the first half of the RPM range, then the second one kicks in. Let's try from 3,000 RPM to see if we can feel when that crossover happens. Felt pretty smooth there. Didn't really feel a dip in torque at all. Woo! This R1 R1 suspension is very stiff though. Not great for daily driving, but it does give us plenty of body control in the corners. Also, this 6-speed manual, a joy to use. Mazda manuals have always been excellent. This one, no exception. It doesn't have that snickety mechanical feel of an S2000 transmission. The throws here are a little bit longer, and it doesn't require as much force, but still very, very satisfying. This is just the perfect car for a winding road because it provides so much feedback, and you sit nice and low, and your view out the front is excellent. Actually, I feel like the second turbo kicks in at a higher RPM, maybe 5,000, 5,500. Let's try this. Third gear, 4,000 RPM. It'll rev all the way to 8,000, as you can tell by the audible beep that instructs you to shift up just before the red line. What a car, what an engine. This 13V twin turbo rotary engine is just fantastic. Reliability aside, these engines are so great. They have so much character. They make a sound that no piston engine could ever make. Listen to this. So satisfying, and it pulls hard all the way to the red line in the drop dead gorgeous exterior styling. To this day, I think of all the 90s JDM classics, in some ways this is one of my favorite to look at. Even though the NSX holds a special place in my heart and it looks more exotic with its mid-engine design, the RX-7, it has that shrink-wrapped, curvaceous body that looks just so ahead of its time. Whereas you can argue that the NSX looks like a Japanese rendition of a Ferrari 348 or 355. The RX-7, in my opinion, looks like nothing else out on the road, even from that era. And even 30 plus years later, it's hard for me to think of a single car that's more beautiful. And when you combine that with these driving dynamics, it's so raw and visceral, while at the same time, it doesn't beat you up. The R1 suspension's not ideal for daily driving, but it's also not terrible. It's nothing as bad as like a Lotus Elise. The interior definitely is a weak point of the car though, but at least this particular example has held up very well. Low mileage, 23,000 miles now that I'm looking at it, and it's been maintained well. It's just phenomenal, and it looks so good in red. Look at the steering just wriggling in my hands with feedback about this imperfect road surface. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal driving experience, and such a unique one. The mid-range surge and torque is so impressive. It has, in some ways, more drama to it than the NSX, even though the NSX makes a bit more power and it's much more linear. Because you do get turbo lag with this car, despite the sequential turbos, this is a car that has a sort of higher learning curve because of the engine. Of the car though, very easy to control. It doesn't feel like it has a super short wheelbase. The front to rear grip levels are well matched. The steering, so much feedback, while also not being overly heavy like the NSX manual steering rack. surge of torque in the mid-range, and the way it just keeps pulling. The suspension does have a little bit of unrefinement to it. The rear does skip just a little bit over the bumps. I think some Öhlins road and track coilovers from Sakebomb Garage would go a long way here. They are the experts in the FD chassis, and I'm sure their long stroke Öhlins would transform this car in both handling and refinement. This is a truly special car. Absolutely loving this experience. It's very different than the NSX, even though both cars are considered 90s JDM legends. This one has more of a tuner vibe to it, even though this one is close to stock. Yeah, you can feel the body panels of the car just jiggling around over the bumps. The NSX chassis definitely feels a lot more rigid. I can't help but compare this car to the NSX as a frame of reference because I'm so used to my 90s JDM classic. I'm so interested in just how this car compares. And they're honestly so different. This has its own unique charm and I really, really enjoy it. The AC is actually blowing nice and cold right now. And I love the visibility from the cockpit. Not just the frontal visibility, even the side visibility is good. The sills are just low enough to where I can see the center lane divider. The rear visibility, even though we have the R1 wing, it's perfectly fine. I don't feel claustrophobic in this car. That's a trait of 90s era JDM cars that I really appreciate. The combination of that rotary buzz with turbo whooshes and whistles, it's such a unique and satisfying sound. So shout out to Toby for letting me experience this 1993 FD RX-7 R1. Let me know how you think this car compares to the other JDM classics. Compared to the NSX, the Mark IV Supra, the R34 GTR, Z32 300ZX, and the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4. Which is your favorite and why? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.